Hi there, I'm Michelle Cobb from JHMG, and today we're going to talk about AI bot traffic analysis. So, a couple weeks ago, we saw Matt Diggity's video on AI SEO techniques, where he talked about pulling the access log file from your website's hosting provider and feeding it to ChatGPT and giving it a series of prompts, which he provided, that would give you data driven insights into, for example, which pages AI bots were really crawling a lot and really interested in, and which pages not so much, so that then you could apply the intervention techniques that he describes in the latter half of the video appropriately. So we were very excited to try this ourselves, and we thought it was going to be a quick and easy thing to do so. That was not the case because of three different hurdles. So problem number one was that our hosting provider, Kinsta, only provides 4 days worth of access log records at any one time. And 4 days would have been a very limited time period to look at, and it would have resulted in biased results. So problem number two, though, is that even with only a few days worth of data, we exceeded what ChatGPT could handle. And I noticed that a couple other people commented on Matt's video that they experienced the same problem. But problem number three involved data fabrication issues on ChatGPT's side. So I'm going to share my screen real quick and show you. But basically, we took just 1 day's worth of data and put it in. So it was, within what it could handle. But it pretended to know answers that it didn't know. So going over here, hopefully you can see my screen now. So when I provided the log, and it said a little bit about it, great. It didn't provide this table that I saw in Matt's video, so I asked specifically for it. And it looked proper, but these hit counts were fabricated. They did not map it all onto the actual hit counts that I found when I looked at the access file myself, except for the fact that it correctly knew that Google Extended had no hits. And I repeatedly queried it. I could not get it to provide accurate data. I tried different GPT models, encountered the same thing, until, after being pushed enough, it admitted to creating hypothetical data. And it also did this with a key analysis where we were told to ask it to list the most highly hit pages on the site and the least favored, or the least often crawled pages on the site. And it showed me a list of pages, many of which did not exist on my site. It was completely made up. So we created a series of Google scripts to overcome all three problems. And I will now show you what it does and how to set it up. So to set it up in the first place, you're going to just need to create a folder in your root drive area. You can call it whatever you like, and you just want to put one file in it to configure an API key as well as the URL for the API endpoint that you need to call upon to get your access log records from your hosting provider. So we were fortunate that Kinsta had an API endpoint that would give us the records on a daily basis so that we could accrue the records over time and get over this limitation of only having 4 days of records to pull at any one time. So that's what script number one here does. So in regards to the config file, I'm not going to show it because it has our API key in it, but don't worry. The scripts, which I'm going to share a link to in the video description, have a sample file here so that you can see exactly how to set that up properly. But obviously, this script assumes that there is an API that you can connect to pull the records. And the details of how those records come through and what format, etc., may vary based on your hosting provider. So you might have to update this file accordingly. However, scripts number 2 and 3 should not have to change no matter where you're getting your access log from. So I'm going to go ahead and run this so that we can see what happens. It's going to go into that folder and provide a access log Google spreadsheet that we can go ahead and take a look at as it's being built. But it basically organizes the access log records into columns that now have data. And the most important columns are the request path, which shows what resource on your website was requested. And these are often pages, images, etc. Then there's the user agent column here, which is who was doing the requesting. And AI bot traffic is common enough at this point. If we even scroll through a bit, we can start to see, for example, right here. So we see GPT bot here, here, and here right off the bat. So to overcome the problem of this being just too much data to throw at an LLM, we need to whittle this file down to just the bot traffic. And that's going to greatly reduce the number of records here. So that's what script number 2 does. But before I get to that, a little note about triggers. So the way Kinsta's API works is that at 8 p.m., it clears out the records that are returned by this API endpoint. So if you call that endpoint at 8 p.m., you'll get nothing. Then as the day goes on, records accrue and you'll be able to get that day's records. So the best time to run this for Kinsta is at 7:58 p.m., 7:59 p.m., where you have the whole day's records accrued, but they haven't been cleared out yet at 8. So what you would want to do is create a time-based trigger over here to run it the first day at about 7:58 p.m. But then thereafter, you don't have to worry about it because this script actually has code in it where it sets its own trigger to run the next day at 7:58 p.m. So set it up once and then it will run every day thereafter so that you can build up your records over time. And at this point, we've been running this, I think, since July 24th, and we've accrued about 50,000 records. So we're getting a good chunk of data to be able to run some good analyses on. But then script number 2 solves the second challenge, which is let's whittle those records down to the ones of interest for exactly what we want to do here. So how does it know which records represent bot traffic? It knows it because of this setup here. So if you're watching this video a year or two from now, there may be different AI bots, or they may be using different names. So you'll want to update this list accordingly. And you can also specify exclusions. So for example, we don't care so much about our images and videos being known to AI chatbots. So in our case, for Googlebot, those things would have been included, except we define exclusion terms here so that we're not looking at that since it's not of interest in our case. And so now that that is finished, let's take a look at what it did. So let me refresh this. So it created a spreadsheet called bot only records, and it has a date and timestamp. And that's so that if you run an analysis right now, you can always refer back to the data set that was used to create those results, so that you can always replicate old analyses. That's why we do that. So if we take a look, we are going to see a much shorter list. So if we go to our access log, there were 3,200 records or so. If we go to the bat only traffic log, there are only 150 or so records. So this first sheet is all AI bot traffic. So all the AI bots that were listed up here. Then there's different sheets for each individual bot. So for example, here we see only GPT. Here we see only Claude. So you can really, fine tune your analyses to which one you're interested in. Then the final step is the analysis script. So what this is going to do is it's going to run the analysis that shows which pages the AI bots are crawling a lot and which pages they are hardly crawling at all. And it's going to create a date and time stamped analysis file in this same area. And while it's doing that, I also just wanted to touch on this. So when we created the access log, when that first script ran, it does create this record of unparsable records. And you just want to take a look every once in a while and make sure that nothing of interest is ending up here. These are records that could not be sorted into the columns that I showed you earlier. And for us, it's just the same cron job over and over again. It has nothing to do with AI SEO, so we don't care about it. But we have those there just so that you can make sure. But here I see that the analysis is finished. Here's our analysis file. So let's take a look. Now, keep in mind, these results are not going to be particularly interesting because we're only looking at part of a day's data. But we are going to see a sheet for all the AI bots together. And actually you can see sheets appearing. It actually was not finished. So it's kind of cool. You can see it in progress. But anyway, you see up here. So the most commonly hit resources are our robots.txt file and our sitemap, which is not all that surprising. But you can see even in the span of part of a day, at least a couple pages are being hit more than one time. And then we can go and look at results specifically for GPT, and which is interesting because this is an article that is many years old. I wouldn't have expected it to be crawled more than once, but again, this is why we want to look at a large period of data so that we don't get hung up on results that don't mean much in the span of just a certain very small time period. And here's for Claude, etc. And that's basically what it does. And now that you have the bot only records file, you could feed this to an LLM, and it's a small enough number of records that it could generate the kinds of qualitative analyses that Matt Diggity showed in the video, and hopefully you can get good results with this smaller subset of records there. So again, if you are not on Kinsta, you will definitely need to modify script number 1 and reach out if you're having trouble doing that. I'm happy to talk to you about that and help out with questions. If you are on Kinsta, this is pretty much ready to go once you create your config file in this folder. So please let me know. I would love to hear in the comments how it goes to set this up. I would love to hear what kind of insights you gather as you, analyze a bigger and bigger time period. And we anticipate putting out a video in a couple weeks once we have about a month's worth of data to look at, to really, get some good insights about what's going on and what we learned from this exercise. So I hope this is helpful. Please reach out if you need help and stay tuned for our next video.